Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to talk about real-time PCR. We all know what PCR stands for. PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction. And this real-time PCR is also known as quantitative PCR. It is a laboratory technique of molecular biology based on PCR. Let us discuss what this real-time PCR is. Why we call it as real-time PCR? This method of real-time PCR is used to monitor the progress of reaction in real time. And as I said you that it can be called as a quantitative PCR. Once we carry out the PCR reaction, what happens in a PCR? We are going to amplify the gene, right? Where we are going to make multiple copies of the gene. So with the help of this method, we can easily find out even the lesser amount of the gene. That means a relatively small amount of the PCR product can be easily quantified with the help of this real-time PCR. So we can also call it as qPCR. Q here stands for the quantitative PCR. This method of real-time PCR is based on the detection of fluorescence that is produced by a reporter molecule, and this fluorescence increases as the reaction proceeds. See, we are going to set up a reaction, right? In a PCR, we go with the three different steps of denaturation, primer annealing and extension, right? So, what happens in the step of extension? We are going to make a new copy of DNA, right? We are going to achieve the synthesis of DNA under in vitro conditions, right? With the help of this PCR method, we are going to amplify the gene. Amplifying in the sense, we are going to make multiple copies of the gene, right? So we are saying that we are going to detect that reaction with the help of a fluorescence. So whenever this reaction proceeds, that means in process of amplifying the gene, that fluorescence will also increase. And based on that increase in the fluorescence, we can easily quantify the amount of PCR product that is formed at the end of the process. So here in this technique of real-time PCR, there will be an exponential amplification of the gene that can be easily detected and quantified with the help of this powerful technique, that is real-time PCR. Hope you are clear with the term real time. That means we are going to monitor the progress of reaction in real time. That means, for example, like if you take a conventional PCR, what we do in that, we have to use a DNA template, right? And then along with the DNA template, we add DNTPs, we add tag DNA polymerase, and we use set of primers, that is the forward primer and the reverse primer. So what these primers will do? Primers will initiate the process of DNA synthesis. Once the primer go and bind with the DNA sequence, then the DNA polymerase will add the nucleotides and thereby increasing the chain of a DNA, right? And here that amplification reaction can be monitored by us with the help of this real-time PCR method. And moreover, in conventional method of PCR, once we are done with the PCR reaction after some 30 to 40 cycles, right? So we are going to get millions and billions copies of gene. So how will you identify the presence of gene, and how will you know that the amplification was done or not? So you need to cast a gel and you need to load that PCR sample into well of a gel, and then you go for the agarose gel electrophoresis. And after the electrophoresis technique, you need to visualize the gel under a UV visible transilluminator so that you can make out the presence of DNA bands if the amplification takes place. If there is no amplification, you may not see any band over there. But here in this real-time PCR method, there is no need of casting a gel and there is no need of electrophoresis to visualize the DNA bands. Directly you can monitor the progress of reaction in real time. That means you can easily monitor whether the amplification is going on or not, and finally you can quantify the PCR product at the end of the cycles. Generally, in a PCR method, as I told you just now, we are going to amplify the gene. Means we are going to make a multiple copy of a gene. For example, this is the DNA. Okay. For example, this is a DNA from either a bacterial source or from the viral source, whatever. And this DNA is having a set of genes. For example, A, B, C, D and E. And you are interested in amplifying gene C. You are not interested in either A, B, D or E. You are only interested in making a multiple copies of this gene C. And you want to proceed with the method of PCR. Right? And now what you need to do is you have to design a primer. How will you design a primer? To design a primer, you need to know the sequence information that is present in this DNA. For example, if this DNA strand contains the sequence information of ATGC for suppose, okay. So this is the information that is present in the strand of a DNA. Now you need to design a primer. So for suppose this is the gene C, okay, and you need to know the sequence information that is present over here, that is in the B and in the D. So these are the flanking regions. Based on the information of these flanking regions, you are going to design a primer. So this primer should be complementary to the gene B and D. For suppose if B have a sequence of ATGC, now your primer should have a sequence of T, A, C and G. Both will be complementary to each other, right? Adenine always pairs with thymine and the guanine always pairs with the cytosine. So whatever the new virus that has discovered or whatever the new bacterial species that was discovered, if we want to amplify any gene related to that particular organism, first we need to sequence it. We need to know the information, that is the arrangement of the bases that are present in the DNA. So once we know the information, that is once we know the sequence information, then only we go with the designing of a primer. So these primers are the complementary to the sequence that is present in the DNA. So they will be highly specific. Once we add a primer, that will go and specifically bind with the DNA if they both are complementary to each other. So here, if you want to amplify the gene C, now you need to design a primer, forward primer that should be complementary with the gene B, and a reverse primer that should be complementary with the gene D. So these are the flanking regions that are present adjacent to the gene of interest. That is, here we are interested in gene C, right? So in this way you design a primer. Okay. Now using a PCR, what we do? We carry out 3 steps, that is denaturation, second step is primer annealing, and the third step is extension. Now let's see what exactly happens in a PCR. Now the first step is denaturation. As I already told you, with the help of this PCR method, we are going to amplify the gene. That means for every cycle, the amount of DNA will get doubled. For suppose initially, if it is a 1 strand, it is going to get doubled, then it will be 4, then 8, 16, 32 and so on. So for each cycle, the amount of DNA gets doubled, right? When the DNA is getting doubled, that means with the amplification of the DNA in this real-time PCR, the fluorescence will increase. So based on that fluorescence only, we are going to detect the amount of PCR product that is formed at the end of the reaction. Okay, see here, this is the double-stranded DNA. Okay, so when we set up a reaction along with the DNTPs, along with the DNA polymerase, along with the primers, we are going to provide DNA template, right? So what happens in the first step? We are saying that the first step is the denaturation. So in the first step, this double stranded DNA will be denatured. So you apply a temperature of 95 degrees centigrade, then the double stranded DNA will become single stranded DNA. Then in the second step, what happens? Primer annealing. So here we maintain a temperature of 65 degrees centigrade. So you need to standardize the temperature here. When you design a primer, what you need to do is, first you need to know the melting temperature. Once you know the melting temperature, so here the annealing temperature should be always 5 degrees less than the Tm of a primer. Right? So here you set a temperature of 65 degrees centigrade. So from 95 degrees centigrade, the second step, the temperature is reduced to 65 degrees centigrade. Now what happens is, so these are the single stranded DNA. Right? After the step of denaturation, the next step is the primer annealing. So here we are going to use a set of primers. So one is the forward primer and the other one is the reverse primer. So to design a primer, you need to know the sequence information that is present in the DNA. Now, so the primer which is complementary to the DNA will go and bind. This is the forward primer and this is the reverse primer, right? So once the primer binds to the DNA sequence, then what happens in the third step? That is extension. This is denaturation, this is primer annealing, and this is extension. Okay, here in extension, what happens? After the binding of the primers, the DNA polymerase will come into the action, and this DNA polymerase will add the nucleotides one after the other, and it will carry out the synthesis of DNA. So here this strand will be used as a template for the synthesis of new strand of DNA, and this strand will be used as a template for the synthesis of new strand of DNA. So initially we have introduced the double stranded DNA as a template, but at the end of the first cycle you are going to get two DNA molecules. When these two DNA molecules again undergo the process of denaturation, annealing and extension in the second cycle, these two will give rise to 4. 4 will give rise to 8. So for each cycle the amount of DNA will get doubled. You all know very well about the role of DNA polymerase. It will add one nucleotide after the other, right? So after the binding of the primer, the DNA polymerase will carry out the last step, that is the extension. In this extension, the DNA synthesis will take place, right? This is what exactly happens with the method of PCR. Now, after the completion of the PCR, how will you detect the gene? You have to go with the agarose gel electrophoresis to visualize the DNA bands. But here in the real-time PCR method, what we actually do is, either we can use certain fluorescent dyes or we can use a TaqMan probe. What they will do is, they will be utilized here as a markers, right? So as the reaction proceeds, as the amplification of the gene takes place, so these fluorescent dyes which will go and bind within the DNA molecule. For example, if it is a single stranded DNA, so those dyes will scatter. They won't bind with the DNA. These are the intercalating dyes. Once the single stranded DNA is converted to a double stranded DNA with the synthesis of new DNA strand, this dye, this fluorescent dyes will go and bind with the double stranded DNA molecule and it will emit light. So based on that fluorescence, based on that intensity of the light, you can easily make out the amount of PCR product that has been formed. Coming to the principle is same as a PCR, where we set up a reaction and that reaction mixture is kept in a PCR machine, and but instead of going with the electrophoresis, here we are going to monitor the progress of reaction in real time. And with the help of fluorescence as a marker, we are going to detect the PCR product. Moreover, this real-time PCR machine is equipped with detectors and camera. So once we set up the reaction and keep that reaction mixture in a PCR machine, we can watch out the reaction with the help of this camera and detectors. As the gene copies increases with the reaction, the fluorescence also increases, indicating the progress of the reaction. And this method of real-time PCR can be divided into two steps. The first step is amplification and the second step is detection. Here in this step of amplification, it is same like a PCR, that what we see in the conventional method of PCR. So here the amplification involves all the three steps, that is denaturation carried out at a temperature of 95 degrees centigrade, where the double stranded DNA will be converted into a single strand. Now each strand will act as a template for the synthesis of new strand of DNA. And in the next step, that is in annealing, we maintain a temperature of around 55 to 65 degrees centigrade, where the primers will go and base pairs with the DNA sequence, and then the process of DNA synthesis will be initiated. And the final step is extension, or we can also call it as elongation. So once the primers go and bind with the DNA sequence, then the DNA polymerase, we usually provide tagged DNA polymerase, which is resistant to that temperature. We maintain a temperature of here around 72 degrees centigrade. So these tagged DNA polymerases were isolated from an organism called Thermus aquaticus, which is a thermophile, which can withstand high temperatures, right? So this DNA polymerase will synthesize the DNA. Once we are done with the denaturation, annealing and extension, we are going to generate new copies of DNA. We call them as amplicons. The end of the first cycle, from a single DNA molecule, you are going to get two DNA molecules, but that is not sufficient. We need to make a multiple copies of the gene. So we go with the repeated cycle. So again in the second cycle, the denaturation, annealing and extension will take place. Again in the third cycle, denaturation, annealing and extension. So the newly formed DNA will again act as a template for the synthesis of new strand of the DNA. In this way the process will continue. And next comes is the detection step. Here we are going to detect the PCR product. That means we are going to detect the amplicons. These are the genes that got amplified with each cycle. In part of this detection method, as I told you earlier, we don't need to go with the electrophoresis. That is, we don't need to identify those DNA bands on gel. Here this detection is based on the fluorescence technology. When we set up a reaction, we are going to add a marker. Either we can go with a fluorescent dye or a Tachman probe. As the copy number of the specific DNA sequence increases, that means once the gene is getting amplified, the signal will also get amplified. And that emitted signal is detected by a detector, and then it will be sent to a computer. After conversion into digital signal, then it will be displayed on the screen. See, for example, as I told you, with the help of detectors, we are going to observe the data on the screen. So you will get a curve like this. With the increase in the cycles, with the increase in the amplification of the gene, the fluorescence will also increase. From this curve, you are going to identify the CT value. Based on that CT value, you will come to know about the amount of gene product that has been produced at the end of the cycle. Just now I told you that in the step of detection, we are going to use fluorescence markers, right? We can go either with the use of cyber green fluorescent dye, or we can prefer Tachman probes. Let's discuss how they work. Now let's discuss how this cyber green dye is used. Generally we can use ethidium bromide and ecridine orange also, which are the intercalating agents, but they are carcinogenic, and generally we prefer cyber green for this real-time PCR method. So here if you look into the picture, these are the scattered fluorescent dye material, right? So this green indicates the fluorescent material, and this is the double stranded DNA. In PCR, what will be the first step? First step is the denaturation, right? So this DNA will be separated. I mean, this double stranded DNA will be separated into a single strand. That's what we call it as denaturation, right? So this fluorescent material, that is this cyber green dye, will not bind to the DNA if it is single stranded. It will go and bind to the DNA if it is double stranded. It is also an intercalating agent. That means it will intercalates within the DNA molecule, right? But in the first step of denaturation, as the double stranded DNA is made into a single strand, this fluorescent material will not go and bind with the DNA. Next is the annealing step, where the primer will go, and this is the primer. The primer, which is complementary to the DNA sequence, will go and base pairs with the DNA. Once the primer go and bind with the DNA forming a duplex, then these fluorescent molecules will go and bind with the DNA. That is, they go and bind within the DNA molecule. So initially, when you check the fluorescence, of course, when you set up a reaction mixture, you are going to add this fluorescent dye as a marker when you set up a reaction, and you will observe some fluorescence, but that will be very less compared to the end of the cycle, because here with each cycle you are going to amplify the gene of interest. When the amplification is going on, when the gene product is doubled, the fluorescence will also increase. So next, in the next step, where in the step of extension, so this DNA polymerase after the binding of primer will come into the action, and it will add one nucleotide after the other. So it will read the information that is present over here in the template DNA sequence, and then it will add the corresponding nucleotide. So it is going to synthesize the DNA in 5' to 3' direction. So the new strand will be synthesized by the addition of the nucleotides one after the other with the help of a DNA polymerase. So now once this chain is elongated, see, you can observe here the incorporation of this fluorescent dye within the DNA molecule. So with the amplification of the gene, this fluorescence will also increase. So that emission of light will be captured, and that will be sent to a computer, which will convert it into a digital signal that will be displayed on a screen. By this way, as the reaction proceeds, as the cycle proceeds, like if we set for 30 to 35 cycles, for each cycle the amount of DNA will get doubled. So if you look into the picture, say for example, initially we have used a DNA as a template. So once it undergo denaturation, annealing and extension, it will gives rise to 2 DNA molecules. So again, if we repeat the cycle of denaturation, annealing and extension, again the amount of DNA will get doubled. Again in the next cycle, again the amount of DNA will get doubled. In this way, as the reaction proceeds, as the amplification of the gene takes place, the fluorescence also increase. So that increase in the intensity of fluorescence can be detected, and that helps us to quantify the amount of PCR product that has been formed with the help of this real-time PCR. Now let's discuss how this Stackman probe works. So if you look into the picture of this Stackman probe, here when we go with the real-time PCR, as we all know that we are going to design a primer based on the sequence information, because it should be complementary to the DNA sequence. So once it binds, it is going to initiate the process of DNA synthesis, right? And here we are also going to design a probe. So this probe should also go and bind with the DNA, and it should possess a sequence that should be complementary to the DNA sequence. See here, if you observe the picture of this Stackman probe, it will have a fluorescent that is at the 5' end, and it will have a quencher at the 3' end. This fluorescent can also be called as a reporter. And the opposite side at the 3' end, it will have a quencher, that is TAMRA. We call it as tetramethylrhodamine, and this is a fluorescent. Okay, so this probe is having a reporter region at the 5' end and the quencher region at the 3' end. And the role of the quencher is that it will inhibit the activity of fluorescent until they are in close proximity with each other. If they are left apart, that means if the quencher is separated from the fluorescent, then it can no longer inhibit the activity of fluorescent. It is going to emit the light. So the activity of fluorescent here is it is going to emit the light, but that activity is inhibited by the quencher when they are in close proximity with each other. Now look into this step of denaturation. Here we are going to use DNA as a template, and the DNA in a double stranded form. When we apply a temperature of 95 degrees centigrade, this double stranded DNA will undergo denaturation. That means the double stranded DNA will be converted into a single strand. Next, in the coming step, that is in the step of annealing, what the primers will do? The primers will go and anneal with the DNA, right? They are complementary to each other, and the primer will go and bind with the DNA sequence. At the same time, this Tachman probe will go and bind with the DNA sequence, right? So in the next step, that is in the extension, this DNA polymerase, what it will do? It is going to synthesize the DNA, right? So this DNA polymerase will keep on moving, synthesizing the DNA by adding the nucleotides. See here, this is the primer, don't get confused. This is the primer. So after the binding of a primer, DNA polymerase will come into the action, where you are also going to provide DNTPs in a reaction mixture. So based on the sequence information on the DNA, for suppose if there is an adenine here, then the DNA polymerase will add thymine here. If there is a base of guanine here, then it will add cytosine here, right? In this way, this DNA polymerase is going to add DNTPs one after the other, and then it is going to synthesize the DNA in this direction. Once this DNA polymerase reaches nearby this Tachman probe, what this DNA polymerase is doing here right now? It is synthesizing the DNA, right? It is having a 5' to 3' polymerase activity. At the same time, this DNA polymerase will have a 5' to 3' exonuclease activity, right? So with that activity, it is going to remove this probe. It is going to cleave the probe. So when it is cleaved, that is when this reporter is separated from the quencher. See here, this is the reporter and this is the quencher, right? So the DNA polymerase will break it. So it will remove first the reporter, then the other one, then the other base, then the other base. It is going to break the quencher. So in this way, this probe will be broken down by the DNA polymerase. So initially, when they are in close proximity with each other, this quencher will inhibit the activity of fluorescent. But when they are set apart, that means when they are broken by the DNA polymerase, when this fluorescent is separated from this quencher, it will emit the light. So that emitted light will be captured and then it will be shown on a digital display. When you observe this step of extension, what happens? This is the newly synthesized DNA. See, the DNA polymerase is synthesizing the DNA. It still proceeds, right? So here there is no Tachman probe. It was cleaved by the DNA polymerase. So as a part of cleavage, this fluorescence is not inhibited by the quencher anymore and it is going to fluoresce. This is one cycle. And again the cycle will proceed, right? So again in the next cycle the same thing happens. Again the breakage of the probe and this will fluoresce the light. As the amplification proceeds, there will be increase in the fluorescence. If you look into the picture, that is, this is the fluorescence and this is the number of cycles. right? So you will get a graph like this. Why? Because for each cycle the amount of gene will be doubled. So this is like an exponential amplification of the gene that is represented with a curve. From this curve you are going to check the CT value. Here the CT stands for cycle threshold. With each cycle of PCR, the amount of PCR product will get doubled. At the same time, the amount of fluorescence will also increase. If you want to study the gene expression, you can go with this method of real-time PCR, where multiple genes can be compared at a time. See, like this here. This is one curve, and this is another curve, and this is another curve. Say for example, this is gene 1, this is gene 2, and this is gene 3. In this way, the gene expression studies can be carried out where you are going to involve multiple genes here. You are going to check the CT values, that is the cycle threshold values. Okay. See, here we are going to compare different genes as a part of gene expression studies, and we are going to check for the CT value, that is cycle threshold value. These are the number of cycles, and this is the fluorescence here. Okay, as the number of cycles proceed, as the gene getting amplified with the each cycle, there will be increase in the fluorescence, right? And here I am saying that we need to check for the CT value, that is the cycle threshold value. That is defined as the number of cycles after which the signal intensifier reaches the threshold is known as CT value. See, the number of cycles after which the signal, even the signal, that is the intensity of the fluorescence, will also increase with the amplification of the gene, right? So that signal intensity reaches the threshold is shown as a CT value. For example, here for gene 1, maybe the number of cycles is like 20, and for the gene 2 and for the gene 3 it could be like 25 and 30. That means after 20 cycles we could detect the gene 1, after 25 cycles we could detect the gene 2, and after 30 cycles we could detect the gene 3. And remember, here high CT value indicates the low concentration of DNA, whereas the low CT value indicates the high concentration of the DNA. So based on this concept only, nowadays in order to identify a coronavirus, based on the CT value we can detect the viral load in particular patient. Remember, if a person get a high CT value, then the concentration of DNA is less, and if the CT value is less, that indicates that the concentration of the DNA is more. Coming to the advantages, there is no need of gel. As I told you earlier, here it's not like a conventional PCR method. To identify a PCR product, there is no need to cast a gel. We can monitor the progress of reaction in real time with help of this method, and moreover it is faster compared to the normal PCR. In normal PCR, what we do, we set up a reaction, we carry out a PCR, and at the end of the PCR we need to cast a gel, we perform agarose gel electrophoresis. It's a time consuming. But here with this method of real-time PCR we can save time. It is used to perform the quantitative analysis of gene expression. And coming to the applications, where we can apply this method in gene expression analysis, cancer research, drug research, gene copy number detection, disease diagnosis and management, viral quantification, food testing, animal and plant breeding. So nowadays we are using this method of real-time PCR to detect COVID virus, right? So that is one of the important application with this method of real-time PCR. This is all about the real-time PCR. I'll come up with the new video soon. Thank you so much.